They call me Jack the Ripper, a name whispered in the dark alleys of Whitechapel, a name that still sends a shiver down your spine more than a century later. You think you know my story, pieced together from newspaper clippings and frantic police reports, but you've only heard their side. Tonight you'll hear mine. It was the autumn of 1888. London was a city of stark contrasts, the grand wealth of the West End and the desperate poverty of the East. I walked those gaslit streets, a shadow among shadows. My world was the labyrinth of Whitechapel, a place teeming with life, yet soaked in despair. The air was thick with the smell of coal smoke, unwashed bodies, and the cheap gin that offered the only escape for so many. I saw the plight of the women of the night, the unfortunates as the papers called them, trapped, forgotten, their lives valued at less than a few pennies. My work began on August 31st. Mary Ann Nichols, they found her in Bucks Row. The press, oh, they had a field day. Horrible mutilation. The headlines screamed. They painted me as a monster, a fiend. But were they not the ones who turned a blind eye to the slow, grinding death these women faced every single day? I was merely accelerating the inevitable, making their suffering scene impossible to ignore. A week later it was Annie Chapman in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. With each act, the hysteria grew. The police, bless their flat-footed determination, were completely lost. Inspector Aberline and his men, chasing phantoms, interviewing hundreds, getting nowhere. They looked for a butcher, a doctor, someone with surgical skill. They imagined a madman with wild eyes and blood-stained hands. They never once thought to look for the gentleman in the top hat, the one who could walk among them, unnoticed, invisible. The city was gripped by fear. Vigilante groups roamed the streets. The papers published letters, supposedly from me, from hell. One of them was signed. They loved the drama, the theater of it all. I gave them a character, a boogeyman to fear. It was a macabre dance, and I was leading. Then came the double event on September 30th, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Etos, one after the other, in the dead of night. It was a message, a declaration that I was untouchable, that I operated by my own rules, my own timetable. The city held its breath. They saw brutality, I saw a canvas. I was an artist of anatomy, and the foggy dark streets of London were my gallery. My final masterpiece was Mary Jane Kelly, young, beautiful in her own way. Unlike the others, this was indoors, at her small room in Miller's Court. Here, I had time. I could perfect my work without fear of interruption. The scene that greeted the world the next morning was one of absolute horror, a sight so gruesome it burned itself into the city's memory forever. It was my magnum opus, my final, brutal statement. And then, silence. I simply vanished. Why, perhaps my work was done. Perhaps the thrill was gone. Or perhaps I simply tired of the game. They searched for me for years. They had countless suspects, doctors, barbers, immigrants, even royalty. But they never found me because I was never who they thought I was. I wasn't a monster lurking in the shadows. I was the darkness itself. I was the product of a society that created its own demons. So the next time you hear the name Jack the Ripper, don't just think of the blood and the mystery. Think of the world that made me. Think of the invisible man who walked among you, who held up a dark mirror to your society, and then disappeared back into the fog, leaving only a legend, and a question that will never be answered. Who was I? I am Jack, and that is all you will ever know.